S Championship is tonight when Montana State and North Dakota State battle. Montana State looking for their second all-time championship. Meanwhile, North Dakota State back in the final for the 11th time in 14 years. They knocked Montana State out of the playoffs in 2018, 2019, 2021, and 2023. They won 8 of 9 titles between 2011 and 2019. They're looking for their second championship at the 2020s. The matchup in Frisco, Texas. Montana State 15-0 this season. North Dakota State 13-2. The Broncos clinched their first playoff berth since 2015 with a win over Kansas City 38-0 at Mile High on Sunday. Denver capturing the 7th and final playoff AFC. The Chiefs rested most of their starters with the AFC's top seed already locked up. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Now's the time to shop limited-time doorbuster deals during Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Save $50 on a Little Giant King Combo 6-foot ladder. Was $199, now $149. Plus, save $100 on a DeWalt XR 20-volt Power Stack 5-amp-hour battery. Was $199, now $99. Get these can't-miss deals now before they're gone. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Doorbusters valid 1/13 through 1/15. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Smart is coming back. The days of just picking teams based on a coin toss are over. You need the latest stats, odds, and information. Make a plan. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Well, duh. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The only place in football where the offense is always on the field is on Moneyline. With the 2 best hosts in radio, Donnie Rightside.
If anybody wasn't watching, let's not know what you were doing.
And Kevin Walsh.
Forget act like you've been there before.
On the SportsGrid Radio Network, SiriusXM Channel 159.
Forget like you've been there before. Why? Because you haven't. It's the playoffs. It's the best hour of your day officially underway. SiriusXM Channel 159, SportsGrid Network. It's Moneyline, it's Donnie, and it's Kevin. And over the next hour, we got a lot to get to, which what happened over the weekend in the NFL and how it turns the page into next week's playoff action. But we do have big news throughout the league. Firing of head coaches. Gerard Mayo's out the door yesterday. Saw Doug Peterson get shoved out the door this morning. General managers staying and head coaches staying in New York for the Giants, Kevin. And here we go into the offseason, into the playoffs.
Yeah, there's a lot certainly to do with the coaches. Yesterday, we were on Pro Football Today, and I think if you kind of saw the online chatter, Mayo being let go, not surprising. Clearly, there was an indication that this was going to be it. And I remember a few weeks ago, there was some chatter around, could Mayo be a one and done? I was like, what were they expecting? When you just consider that the New England Patriots were supposed to be the worst team in football, really, Donnie. And I don't know where you land on it, but it's hard for me to say, he made sure to win on the way out to screw him. I mean, they did. So week 18, right, Donnie? We talk about teams who want to win and teams who want to lose.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you see a team like the New England Patriots go, yeah, we're going to let Drake May get the start and then immediately pop the helmet. And the entire everyone in the building knows, yeah, well, we figure Joe Milton will be worse. Now, Joe Milton rips. I've been a Joe Milton fan since he had some pop at Michigan. But,
yeah,
I don't know, Don. Gerard Mayo didn't do anything in Week 18 that cost him the job. They clearly made their mind up, I think, a few weeks ago, probably.
No, you're right about this. And also understand this. I was actually surprised that Gerard Mayo got fired. Not because he's a good head coach. I think he stinks, quite frankly. And I think they did so many things that were puzzling. And one thing about organizations is usually everybody's on the same page. They were off every page, every single week. Nobody made sense. What they were talking about, players, coaches, nothing mattered at that point. But I did think that owners who, when you understand that the only reason why Gerard Mayo is a head coach is because Robert Kraft wanted him to be the head coach. And when you're the owner, you do whatever you want. So I thought it was one of those moves, Kevin, where it's like, okay, first year, didn't expect much, didn't have a lot of talent. I'm going to make sure this works. We are going to have a high draft pick, which looks like it was going to be number 1 overall. You didn't need your quarterback. You figure you have one. You can turn that into a treasure trove by trading out of the number 1 spot, maybe even back to 4, picking up extra first-round picks in the future. Then you have more money than just about every single team in the NFL to spend. You were going to spend like a drunken sailor to make sure that you put Gerard Mayo in the best spot because it makes you look good. But I do give a little bit of credit to New England and Robert Kraft by going like, you know what? Sorry, guys, I didn't probably take enough of your input. I thought Mayo was the guy. He's clearly not the guy. Let's just cut bait now. I'll write a check. We'll be gone. We'll get a new coach in here, and maybe the fan base can start to rally around us again. So I was surprised that Gerard Mayo was fired yesterday, right after the game. But the way it came down, like usually you wait till all right, let's get everything in order. Probably knows he's fired. We'll get the legal team ready. Everything's here. He got fired like as soon as that game ended, as almost like, I can't believe you won that game. Like, you knew we didn't want to. We can't tell you lose the game because you're going to get into a multi-million-dollar lawsuit like Brian Flores and the Miami Dolphins are getting into when they're like, hey, little elbow pinch. Like, look, you know you can't win these last 2 games, right? We need and you know what? I'm going to write that down. I'm going to give that to my lawyer. And when you fire me, I'll sue you because you wanted me to actually tank football games. But there was no reason. And also, that Sunday game, Kevin, against the Bills played a lot of starters. Mitchell Trubisky's been around the block a long time. And you started Joe Milton like, man, this kid's going to throw like 7 picks and look like an idiot out here. He played well, you won, and you got fired because of it. I'll see it.
Yes, see, my only thing, Donnie, is I think he got fired at 4 o'clock because of it, but it's not why he got fired. Like, there was a report the day prior where it was like, Ben Johnson's got his eye on the New England job. We were sat there, right? Schefter does his big report before the show. Leaning out. It's like, leaning out? Really? After once, I'm telling you, Donnie, word got around that Kraft was going to let Gerard Mayo go. And then, him winning the game again at 4 o'clock, he's like, don't even hit the changing room. We'll mail you your stuff.
I mean, the best part about that, though, is like if you're a coach, you should have either fired him the week previous so he wasn't there. So the interim coach comes in and be like, you want to stick with this organization? Do what's best for the organization. I'm not going to say what's best. You just do what's best for the organization. All right, take a loss.
Donnie,
this guy's good. You know what I mean? That's what should have happened.
What were they supposed to do other than put in the 3rd-string quarterback?
You could
actually call net bad plays.
3rd and 11, run it up the middle.
There.
Yes, you can. The Cleveland Browns got you there. They were smart. They did that. Yesterday, the Giants understand them. Hey, you two are coming back. Oh, thank goodness. We better lose because I want a better draft pick here. The Giants understood the assignment with their play calling, how they played that game out. The Patriots had no idea what they were actually doing. And again, the Buffalo Bills didn't send the Kansas City squad out there that was like, you know what? We're throwing to wideouts you never heard of. We are not going to do a damn thing to stay in this game against the Broncos. We just want out of town. You actually got a decent look from the Bills. It was like, yo, we're gaming this. We should be able to win this game going away. And the fact that they lost, horrible. Because they didn't need a quarterback. They were in such a number 1 overall pick when you don't need a quarterback, when teams are going to be kicking down your door to get that quarterback. Boy, did they blow it. They blew it so big.
Listen, I'm not saying they didn't, right, in terms of losing the pick. I think you go to the 3rd-string quarterback. Listen, I don't know. Like, as somebody who's still watching the Eagle game, because Tanner McKee, Donnie, for 250+ ended up being one of the nicer bets of the day and whatnot.
Wow.
Like, the Giants were out there just playing football. They just stink. They're garbage. They're terrible, right? Like, that's just what it comes down to. I understand. Listen, if they called got up the middle every play, but there still feels something very taboo about that, about approaching a game like that. So, it is what it is. I'll tell you this. We talk about, I think Raheem Morris would deserve to be fired way more than Gerard Mayo. Like, Don, I understand that the Bucs ended up winning. Your season is on the line, and Bryce Young is out there essentially going to get a statue built in Carolina at the end of that football game. 44 points with your season on the line? Come on now.
That was crazy, too, because I hit my, my long shot play yesterday on Sell Me Something, which I was like, it's going to happen. I think it will. It's kind of funny that it did happen. But if you would have said that, Bijan went nuts. Penix looked great. You had 535 yards or whatever it was on offense, and you lost. But the fact is, I ended up losing a parlay because they lost. Washington, I have no idea how they won the football game, but they did. The Denver Broncos easily won that game. And my one that I liked probably the best was still Washington at that point. But we'll get to that in just a little bit. But from an Atlanta perspective, like Raheem Morris, like you deserve to get fired today. Like your only job was, I have an offense that I can just leave alone at this point. Wasn't working all that great with Kirk. Penix had a good game last week, played really well yesterday, and your defense couldn't get one single stop against a dead-in-the-water football team with barely any weapons left on the field, and they just got erased. As soon as they won that kick in overtime, I was like, you know what? They already know the score in that Tampa game. It's a wrap on this. They walked right down the field on Raheem Morris's defense and punched it in for a victory. Hilarious also that once they figured at the end of the game that this was over, they should have just fumbled the first snap in the overtime and got the loss and got out. Like, hey, you know what? Quarterback played well, better draft assignment. Let's get out of here. But no, they of course won that football game. Crazy.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but I guess for Atlanta, the same MO, right? Don, it's like, hold on, we're not making the playoffs. All right, let's see if we can get up a slot.
That's true.
Or two here.
Yeah.
What an outrageous game that was, though. Again, like probably showing 5 total touchdowns. Like now, it's like Canals, like I know I have my quarterbacks. Wow, okay. Like it's just going to be really interesting to watch all that play out.
Tennessee, number 1 overall pick. Now, if we're talking about firing coaches in their first year, fire that GM in Tennessee and fire that coach, because I don't know where they're headed at this point, but I would just blow it up right now at this point. Just horrendous stuff. We have so many more hot topics. Looking at, Will Levis out here throwing a balloon touchdown late in the game. I mean, just awful, awful football. It's Sonny, it's Kevin, it's Sirius XM Channel 159 on the SportsGrid Network. We'll be right back. More action ahead.
We're the club you want to join, even though we'd have you as a member.
You'll like it here. We have munchies.
And the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
A new lawsuit against a Beverly Hills OBGYN brings the total number of alleged sexual abuse victims to 167. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. This update brought to you by Progressive. The additional plaintiffs joined 60 other former patients who were accusing 74-year-old Dr. Barry J. Brock of sexually exploitative and abusive material dating back several decades. Brock was a member of the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center until 2018 and had clinical privileges there until last year. The lawsuit claims Cedars-Sinai and other medical practices concealed his actions. The IRS reminds taxpayers a tax filing extension for residents of 24 states affected by disasters is coming to an end in 2025. Those who received a grace period to file their 2023 returns will have to file by early February or May, depending on where they live. The extension was offered to eligible individuals and businesses affected by disasters that happened during the late spring through the end of 2024. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Hey, you've definitely had a busy month. Finding gifts, sending cards, hosting family. Well, now it's time to treat yourself at Macy's After Christmas Sale. Come and find great deals on something just for you. Like 25% off New Year's party looks from DKNY, Adriana Papel, and more. So enjoy the week and get yourself the gifts you really wanted before these limited time deals are over. At Macy's After Christmas Sale. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
This holiday season, Capital One reminds you to give yourself the gift of 1.5% cash back with the Capital One Quicksilver Card.
Can I earn 1.5% cash back on birds?
Birds?
What if you sent your true love 2 turtle doves plus a partridge in a pear tree?
Sure, but why would anyone want that?
The song was very convincing.
Earn 1.5% cash back on all your holiday purchases with the Capital One Quicksilver Card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
You've heard of smart bombs,
Smartphones, smart cars, smart watches, and smart glasses.
Now you can add smart player.
Giving you sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Outside of 2 primetime games, like 2.5, 3 weeks ago, we're having a pretty good run in the NFL, particularly on our show plays, best bets, and all that stuff. Having a great time, people enjoying it. We do a lot of good stuff on Pro Football Today, a lot of winners out there, and a lot of fun. I know the people appreciate it. They always get back to us, and we love certainly doing that. Yesterday, Kevin, let me ask you this question. The Buccaneers end up beating the Saints, which punches their ticket to the playoffs. The Saints with nothing to play for, boy, were they game in that for that entirety of the game itself. Up double digits at the break. Even in the second half, late in the game, down 8 points, driving to see if they can put up a touchdown, maybe a 2-point conversion to get that game to overtime. They weren't able to do that. Seconds left on the clock. A knee gets you to the playoffs with your hats and your T-shirts as divisional champions. I don't have an issue with what happened either way, but I did think it was interesting where it was $3 million is a lot of money to any player. I don't care if they may have a $150 million contract. It's a lot. Mike Evans did get that. But I was wondering, like in the back of my head, saying, boy, I would love to come on today if New Orleans understood the assignment like everybody in the stadium and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They don't line up in victory formation. They know Mike Evans is hunting that 1,000 yards. Did they let that play happen? Did New Orleans let that play happen? Because if they understand the assignment, Kevin, because I don't think either, because I don't care how much you like a guy, you're never doing that. But they played that play as if they were like, hey, I'm not like, I knew it, you knew it, everybody knew it. Why didn't 3 DBs, the minute that ball was snapped, just jump Mike Evans? Why didn't they?
Yeah, they played it straight, and then ultimately they got beat on a pick route, right? That's ultimately what happened there, right? I said this because we were sitting in the house watching it. I go, they line up 3 guys on Mike Evans. You know what I'm doing? I'm throwing a 75-yard touchdown to Jalen McMillan then. Like, that's what I would have done if I was the Bucs. No.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have cared. And I think Baker Mayfield would have ate it and just got sacked, and that would have been the game over because the clock would have run out.
Bucs would have called.
Like, I'm not saying they would have thrown like blind into the flat for a pick 6, but you knew that was coming. And the fact that NFL DBs are so talented and they know how to disguise coverage, like the minute this ball snapped, I'm leaving my guy on the outside and I'm sitting here in zone coverage because if that ball does come, I'm jumping it. Because if they would have jumped the route and housed it, I think that game would have ended up differently in Atlanta, where Atlanta goes, oh my God, a miracle just happened. Like, we're going to actually play defense in overtime and win this football game.
But kind of, they would have jumped it. They would have had to go for a 2-point conversion. Honestly, they probably wouldn't have even got it. I still think the Bucs would have won. I think that's a big reason that Tampa Bay.
But we've never seen that before, though. Like you take a knee, you win. Like, if you throw the football, there's a chance that you could end up in overtime in that spot. Like, how does that play out?
Yeah, let me tell you, they did the right thing. I would tell you this right now, that Tampa Bay 100% did the right thing.
Yeah, I'm the ultimate hater, and even I'm not on the side because I want to be the hater and be like, that's ridiculous. That's like they should take the record away. Jerry Rice should still have that. First of all, I don't like Jerry Rice as it is, so I'm happy that record's being broken on his end of it. But I watched that play and go, ooh, that would have been interesting. But no, I understood. They understood the assignment. And this is why Baker Mayfield so many times is loved by whatever teammate he plays for. Brother, if we are going to risk going to the playoffs, I'm going to make sure I take care of you. That means a lot. I'm telling you it does.
Well, but not only that, Donnie, like, I think for Todd Bowles, people wouldn't expect that out of him, right?
Yeah.
Old school defense first coach. Liam Cohen, that's a lot of pressure. Year 1 offensive coordinator. Let me make sure I get this right. I think everybody involved, Donnie, listen, I made the immediate joke, like, man, please don't let Saquon see a video of that. He's going to be pissed. They're not apples to apples, right? But you could argue that what Tampa Bay did was riskier than what the Eagles were considering doing, right?
Theoretically.
But ultimately, Tampa made that right decision. Not because, oh, come on, it's going to work.
Yeah.
You watched it work. Like, I'll put it to you like this. The celebration in that stadium, will if they beat Washington, will not be as loud as it was when he caught that football.
Or that's the celebration on the sideline from like an interception that ends it. Like, hey, that was great.
Yeah.
But they met him in the middle of the field and loved it.
Correct.
Post-game celebration.
And he loved it.
Yes.
And he loved it, which was key. Like, if he acted like cool about it, that would have been. Like, I'll tell you though, Donnie, because I don't think Mike Evans usually gets the rap of the diva wide receiver. But that little pop pass that went to Bucky Irvin and the camera made sure to catch Mike and he sure wasn't celebrating going to the postseason, I appreciate that a lot.
Like,
I appreciate
your job is to get me the football, which I'm surprised. I figured it was one of those he would get that in the first half. Not because he's just a dominant wide receiver against a bad secondary and a bad team.
Let me ask you this, though, Donnie, right?
Yeah.
The incentive stuff. Like, I don't know how much stuff you were betting incentive-wise and how it went for you.
Yeah.
Like, Mike Evans went under every number.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you know?
I thought he would get over 100 yards. I thought he'd be over 100.
I did too, based on the matchup and things of the nature. He went under every number, right? I know people were banging some Pollard numbers. Under every number, right?
Yeah.
I think Sutton got there, if I'm not mistaken.
He did.
You know,
I like at 69.5, but he blasted through every number and got that 82. Yeah.
But like, really not. Like, Don't you think to some degree the game is up on incentives? To some degree.
What in what way? What do you mean?
Like the fact that like Mike Evans went out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And went like 8 for 91.
Yeah.
And anybody who was betting Mike Evans incentive overs lost, like got cracked.
Yeah, because you probably had, if it was up earlier in the week, you probably got a better number and probably got
I don't think they ever posted anything outside, Donnie, of what
Sutton, I got Sutton 68.5. He needed 82. Like, you should be betting over 82 because he's going to get it. Well, he got that. Same thing with like Kyler Murray for me was 50 and a touchdown. I bet it at 28.5, laughing like that's a great number. Got into the mid 40s. He didn't end up getting that number. Same thing with Pollard, but there are numbers that you can get earlier. They don't just set it like Tony Pollard's touchdown prop is minus 400 for 2 touchdowns because you know he's getting it. You still have to get it somewhat in the game flow. We understand certain guys with those things, they're going to be getting extra targets, and you can take advantage. Like for me, again, I had Sutton at 68.5, easily won that, but also bet Kyler Murray 28.5. He needed 50 and a touchdown. He didn't give a damn. They scored almost 50 points. He didn't score a rushing touchdown. They were down there all game long, and he didn't feel like running the football at all because I thought it was going to be, I got the whole fourth quarter to get 7 yards. He's definitely going to get that. And he never even looked to run outside of those 3 runs that he had for the game itself. So it was interesting to take a look at that. But we got a lot of things to go over, which includes maybe a wake-up call in the Detroit Lions yesterday. Their defense was really good. Or is it Sam Darnold's a pumpkin again because he missed a ton of throws in that first half to keep that one close? Moneyline on a Monday, armchair quarterback style. Sonny and Kevin will be right back.
We never stop giving you sports gaming strategies and information 24 hours a day.
7 days a week. Business hours are for losers.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1985, the NFC Championship at Candlestick Park in San Francisco, where the 49ers beat the Chicago Bears 23-0. San Fran would go on to beat the Miami Dolphins 38-16 in the Super Bowl, as Joe Montana won game MVP. In 1980, the NFC Championship at Tampa Stadium, the LA Rams beat the Buccaneers 9-0. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
AI algorithms trained by Dartmouth researchers with tens of thousands of knee x-rays looking for hidden medical insights. The AI discovered if orthopedic patients drank beer or didn't like to eat refried beans. These amazing, subtle, unintended patterns in the data are all highly accurate, except have absolutely no basis in medical fact. An AI defect known as shortcut learning, while it's a great tool, AI doesn't actually reason or understand and can easily hallucinate. Follow me at Capalbo on X and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
The early line.
I just think it's a terrible matchup here for Boise State. The defense of Penn State allowing 279 yards of total offense a game, allowing barely 100 yards per game rushing, which is the strength of Boise State. It's simple. Shut down Ashton Genty, and guess what? Boise State's going to have a hard time in this game.
It's the early line with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Weekdays, 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network.
There, Sporto.
We know you've been hurt in the past. Big stations with big promises lied to you, suckered you in.
We don't do that. We're the real deal.
You can take our information to the bank. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
And we're bigger than Real Deal Holyfield right here on Moneyline, having some fun, talking some NFL hot topics as we were getting down. Incentive clauses, Mike Evans cash in, Darren right here on Twitter/X. He had Evans for over 80 yards and cashed that in. I've been having a really good run. Prop bets have been sensational. Morning crunch bets, hitting left and right. Had an easy no-sweat victory yesterday with over 1.5 touchdown passes on Bo Nix. He ended up with 4. Saturday, we had Lamar Jackson. Over 1.5 touchdown passes. He cleared that number as well. So having some good times betting. But last night, decided to go with a 4-leg parlay on Bet365 because I just wanted to get involved in the game. You know, I had a lot of people ask, hey, you going to do something? Say, no, let's run it up to an 8-1. I cashed an 11-1 yesterday, which was great. But 8-1 last night. The one leg that lost was Justin Jefferson. I believe he was at 96.5 yards. Thought he would have a big night because I thought the Vikings possibly could be playing from behind and a bad secondary for the Detroit Lions. I was wrong there. I had over 1.5 rushing touchdowns plus 150 for the Detroit Lions. They hit that easily. Gibbs got in the end zone 4 times. I had Sam Laporta over 4 catches. That one was an easy one. Also had Jahmyr Gibbs over 86.5 rushing yards. But I was stunned last night, Kevin, when I saw that Vikings game. And I said, you know what? Still close in the first half. But the one thing that you saw the Vikings all season long with Darnold, they moved the football with relative ease. And he was always on target, always on the money. I was seeing yesterday, yes, he was getting pressured and getting hit. But there were times, Kevin, 5-step drops, clean pocket, nobody open. And that's something I haven't seen here. So I don't know if it was, Aaron Glenn absolutely dominating, which he did last night, or was it just a bad game by KOC calling plays because what they were doing in the regular season wasn't working last night.
No, it wasn't. But there were also guys open that he could not hit. And that was a big part of it too, right, Donnie? He was bad. But Justin Jefferson wasn't good. It wasn't like Aaron Jones was good. Down in the red zone, they were really bad. And I think it's interesting because Kevin O'Connell was about as aggressive as Dan Campbell was in that game. And, was that how Kevin O'Connell wants to play it? Was he kind of trying to match the opponent? I think, right? What happens, though, in those games, Donnie, occasionally is if you go for 1 4th and goal, you now feel like you have to go for all the 4th and goals, and you kind of get put in that box. But for me, there was one play in that game that I really appreciated. It was a 4th and 2. When the Lions, Donnie, were able to get the Vikings to jump off sides?
Yes.
Down at the goal line?
Yes.
So for anybody who doesn't watch me, Donnie, and Lisi at nights, one of the kind of running jokes is, do the analytics ever say kick it? Right? Do the analytics ever say take the 3? And I'm watching that football game, and I'm thinking, this is a field goal spot. Up in the booth, unsurprising, Donnie. Field goal spot.
Yes.
But Dan Campbell, who I explained to people, lost me last Monday, showing that Dan Campbell doesn't really know what he's doing. He's just going to go out there and beat his chest, right?
Yes.
So the idea is Dan Campbell follows the analytics. No, he doesn't. He's just going to go out there and beat his chest.
Yes.
The analytics said, kick the field goal, 2 possessions becomes 3 possessions. This football game is over. Now, it worked out, obviously. But that is where people have had issue with Dan Campbell, and I have not had issue, right? Is whether it works or not, if you're it's almost like playing blackjack to some degree, Donnie, of like following things by the book, right?
Yes.
Dan Campbell is not like picking and choosing the spots to be aggressive. It's just head down, go forward. And when you operate like that, it can cost you then because your understanding of the moment may not be there. And again, in that moment, Donnie, obviously it didn't cost them anything. And instead they picked up a first down. But it was another reminder to me that Dan Campbell doesn't actually get it in the way that I know for a long time I thought he did.
No, he doesn't. And that's why, because I always give credit where credit is due. They were phenomenal last night. They were the better football team. They're the 1 seed. They're going to get rest. And if they win the Super Bowl, you're like, you know what? Dan Campbell played that season the way he's supposed to. But as the stakes get higher in games where you just can't say, we're so much better than you, I'll do whatever I want, and no matter what happens, we'll be the winners at the end of the game. You're going to see things where they're going to play elevated competition and go, oh, you know what? There's 42 seconds left to go in the first half. We're on the 30-yard line on a 4th and 2. Take the field goal in a dome and, go up 6 points or whatever at the break. No, let's go for it here. Even though you go, well, this doesn't actually guarantee you a touchdown. There's a chance that you might turn it over, or better yet, not even get the 4th down to kick that field goal. It's going to pop up and it's going to rear its ugly head. But they were sensational last night. Let's hit more hot topics next, right here on Moneyline.
You're
listening to your source of sports gaming strategies and information.
We call it the winning edge.
It helps make the odds even.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. The FCS Championship is tonight when Montana State and North Dakota State battle. Montana State looking for their second all-time championship. Meanwhile, North Dakota State back in the final for the 11th time in 14 years. They knocked Montana State out of the playoffs in 2018, 2019, 2021, and 2023. They won 8 of 9 titles between 2011 and 2019. They're looking for their second championship at the 2020s. The matchup in Frisco, Texas. Montana State 15-0 this season. North Dakota State 13-2. The Broncos clinched their first playoff berth since 2015 with a win over Kansas City 38-0 at Mile High on Sunday. Denver capturing the 7th and final playoff spot in the AFC. The Chiefs rested most of their starters with the AFC's top seed already locked up. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Welcome back to College Bowl season. And now it looks like a fan has run onto the field carrying a $5 KFC bowl.
Oh, yeah, looks like the mac and cheese bowl with 5 original recipe nuggets, or the new Nashville hot loaded fry bowl with nuggets, coleslaw, secret recipe fries, pickles, and Nashville hot sauce. Wow, looks yummy from up here.
Boy, everybody wants that bowl as more fans are pouring onto the field. Hey, Phil.
Get the only bowls that matter this season. 5 delicious bowls, just $5 each. Only at KFC. Prices and participation may vary while supplies last. Taxes, tips, and fees extra.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, you could go big time. The next time you're out to dinner with friends, you can order the shrimp cocktail for the table. And maybe you'll realize it only comes with 4 shrimp after you've already given away 3, but that one shrimp will be so good. And if you switch and save hundreds, you could get shrimp all the time. Switch to Progressive and you could save big time. For shrimp. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
Be the master of your domain. Get the SportsGrid mobile app so now you can get the winning edge while your wife is in a dressing room trying on stuff while you wait patiently on the uncomfortable chair. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Let's look ahead because we do have the playoffs this week. Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And for anybody out there, shame on you who didn't think that the Texans were not going to get that early start on Saturday. You haven't watched the last decade of football. The NFL despises the Texans and hopes they get knocked out every year in that early slot so they don't have to continue to waste time here. That's the shame, and they're actually going to be an underdog. But the 2 games on Saturday, 4:30 p.m., Chargers, Texans. Then the 8 o'clock game, Pittsburgh and Baltimore. Then the Sunday slate, 3 games, 1 o'clock, 4:30, and 8:15. That's Denver and Buffalo, Green Bay and Philadelphia, Washington and Tampa Bay. Then the Monday night football game is Minnesota and Los Angeles. I want to start here because I think it's an interesting conversation. The Monday night football game is Minnesota and Los Angeles. We've never seen a football game with that big of magnitude to end the season where one team reaps all of the benefits. Won that game, week off next week, home for the entire stretch of the playoffs as long as we win, and the losing team goes, oh no, we were on the road for this game. Now we got to fly home. Now we got to practice, and we're a little bit down in the dumps because we had it all in front of us, and then fly a couple 1,000 miles to take on a team that rested on Sunday in the Los Angeles Rams. Where are we at, Kevin, with the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah, I think the Rams are going to be the most popular bet, maybe of the entire NFL wildcard round. I don't know how you see it right now, but that is how I think that plays out. The Rams have beat them. People like betting on that Rams team. The Rams took their time off. Minnesota and the way that all played out on prime time, and they're a dog, right? I mean, the Rams are a dog. You know, people like the chance to find the upset pick, and I think that they are going to be an incredibly popular pick. Probably, I think the most popular pick, Nani, of the wild card weekend
is who?
The Rams. I think they will be. It'll probably be them or the Ravens, like the most bet side of round 1.
Yeah, we'll get those numbers in a little bit. It's interesting too because I still think people will probably like, only 1.5 or 2 at this point. They should be able to rebound, but we always know recency bias, how it checks in. And I do say this, the later you get in the season, you start to try to change some of your betting formulas here if you're a sides handicapper, because I always found it much easier in the playoffs because everybody is a football fan. Everybody is betting those games, and everybody who didn't watch all of the games or analyze it is like, you know what? Side-by-side games, individuals out here, one game line up. Like, I do think pros versus Joes is phenomenal in the playoffs and through to the Super Bowl, where everybody tends to get involved. I want to see where those lines go and also where the actual money is out, because they're not out yet right now at this point, and rightfully so. It's only been a couple hours since these lines have been out. But if we are looking at the lines across the board, 2.5 as a favorite as a road team here for the Chargers doesn't surprise me. We thought Houston would be a dog in that one. Pittsburgh and Baltimore, this one caught me, and that's where we'll stay for a moment. 9.5, which is almost double digits here. Look, I know Baltimore's a better football team, but Zay Jones, we don't know if he's going to play in this game. That's a key cog on the outside. And if we're taking a look at weather conditions, which I'm just going to click on to see if we have them up already, we don't. But on the East Coast, we're expected to get a decent snowstorm anticipated for Saturday. I'm not saying that the field's going to be covered, but let's just say we are, Kevin, 25 degrees, 15-mile-an-hour winds blowing, maybe some snow flurries in the air. Am I wrong for just looking at that line right now and going, I think I'm taking Pittsburgh if it stays at 9.5?
No, I'm going to be looking Pittsburgh's way as well. I still just think the nature of that rivalry, at some point, right, Donnie, Tomlin as an underdog is typically still something that you'd like to back. Now, that's not been the case, and when he makes the playoff as this lame duck. Chiefs have rolled him, Bills have rolled him, but it is the nature of that matchup. But I will tell you, Donnie, I am going to very desperately try to bet that game from a total angle, as either whether that be a Ravens team total under, a Steelers team total over, the game under. I agree with you. My same look was let me grab the points with Pittsburgh, but I don't want that to be my end result ultimately on the betting card, because Pittsburgh has been getting rolled, and you often talk about, man, you want to think a team can win, and listen, I think kind of you get to the playoffs, anyone can beat anybody. I really do feel that way. So for me, maybe the Steelers pull it off, but I think I would be almost betting one of those big college underdogs. Man, let's just hope we stay inside the number, right? Where in college, that's a little more comfortable. I'm not as interested in doing that NFL-wise with Pittsburgh, so I'm going to look for some other angles, but I agree with you on the look.
Yeah, line dropped on the total, opened up 46.5 down to 44.5 again. Should be some pretty cold temperatures here on the East Coast. The Saturday slate, and I do see these high numbers, like Baltimore 9.5. I'm not in a hurry to take the Baltimore Ravens at that number, and I'd be shocked if that game ends up 10 as opposed to, let's just say, 9 or less. I don't think it's getting double digits. But Buffalo and Denver opened my eyes too. Like, we like the Denver Broncos when they're in position to win football games as the favorite. They've been pretty good at that this year. But now they're going in an 8.5 and even a 9 showing up at BetMGM. I think Denver stays inside that number, Kevin. Because I don't know if the Buffalo Bills would be in blowout mode per se, as opposed to let's just survive in advance. I do think the Denver Broncos can hang around the Buffalo Bills on Saturday.
Yeah, I got you. The early look for me would be the other direction, just because usually when Buffalo wins, they win big. That's the early thought for me, right? For Denver, man, 38-0 is still incredible. Kansas City did no-show the football game. Like to be fair, I guess, Donnie, right? Like, I question, like, what'd you want out of New England? What Kansas City did, right? Like, Kansas City's like, I don't even think Andy Reid put a game plan in. Like, my poor Carson Wentz went out there with no prayer, no hope, no chance.
Smoked.
So, the early thought for me is Buffalo, but I am, for me, I've enjoyed, betting sides. I have. Well, you get to the postseason, and I've always enjoyed a team total when we get to the NFL playoffs, right? That's been the case working with you for a while. So, am I going to want to bet Buffalo? Am I going to want to lay 8.5, or am I going to want them to take them to score? I don't know the number, 27, 28 for a winner. Probably go the other way.
I'm excited. Like, I think that's a good one. Then you got Philadelphia at 4:30, which, again, the football gods did me a solid there. when I said I want any single game slot this weekend with work and how it fits into my schedule and enjoyment time. The Eagles at 4:30 on Sunday at home against the Green Bay Packers makes perfect sense. That opening line, which sometimes I get angry at myself. Like I missed on the 3.5s for Washington. See that final score? Now, granted, I still took them in a money line. Didn't bet it straight, so I theoretically won that bet. But I'm like, you know what? I waited and I lost it. Before the game started, because once they started this weekend, they took the games off the board on Sunday where you couldn't bet the future hypothetical lines on FanDuel. The Eagles were a 3-point favorite over Green Bay, and I loved it. And I just was like, it'll be, I'll wait till the end of the week. The lines disappear, then they reappear. 4s, 4.5s, even 5.5s to some outlets. And I do agree with that. The Green Bay Packers did play a majority of their starters. Now, they didn't give Jacobs 25 carries. I think he only got 6 carries, did some damage, scored a touchdown. Love got banged up in that football game. But as we see, the Green Bay Packers have this MO in the season, Kevin. Same as the Denver Broncos and Penn State per se. We're better than you, we're favored. We're going to beat you. The minute we have a step-up spot, 2 against the Vikings, 2 against the Lions, 1 against the Eagles, we're just not going to be able to win those football games. And the Eagles, with that rest advantage now at home, I think are shot out of a cannon. They win it. Am I running to the window to lay 5.5? Not necessarily. But I look at this game, and it's going to be competitive. It's going to be a tight one all the way through. But I still think I'm giving the nod to the Eagles. 46.5, 45.5 as the total. It'll be cold in Philadelphia on Sunday, by the way. I did look at the numbers, Kevin. 38, 39 degrees, sunny, no precipitation in the forecast. 10 or 12 mile-an-hour winds. So we're going to get a pretty clean game there.
Yeah, I am. I wish we weren't playing the Packers, I'll be honest with you. I still trust Philly, but that was, of the teams, that was not the one I wanted for the Philadelphia Eagles to play.
I'm going to start looking at Jaden Daniels. That mobile quarterback gave him a little issues. Love not really that mobile. Head hunting in Philadelphia on Sunday. Good stuff here. More to come.
Loser is kind of a mean-spirited slur.
But it doesn't have to stick.
Tell them to listen to SportsGrid and fix it.
No, thank you.
Later.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. The FCS Championship is tonight when Montana State and North Dakota State battle. Montana State looking for their second all-time championship. Meanwhile, North Dakota State back in the final for the 11th time in 14 years. They knocked Montana State out of the playoffs in 2018, 2019, 2021, and 2023. They won 8 of 9 titles between 2011 and 2019. They're looking for their second championship at the 2020s. The matchup in Frisco, Texas. Montana State 15-0 this season. North Dakota State 13-2. The Broncos clinched their first playoff berth since 2015 with a win over Kansas City 38-0 at Mile High on Sunday. Denver capturing the 7th and final playoff spot in the AFC. The Chiefs rested most of their starters with the AFC's top seed already locked up. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Welcome back to College Bowl season. And now it looks like a fan has run onto the field carrying a $5 KFC bowl.
Oh, yeah, looks like the mac and cheese bowl with 5 original recipe nuggets, or the new Nashville hot loaded fry bowl with nuggets, coleslaw, secret recipe fries, pickles, and Nashville hot sauce. Wow, looks yummy from up here.
Boy, everybody wants that bowl as more fans are pouring onto the field. Hey, Phil.
Get the only bowls that matter this season. 5 delicious bowls, just $5 each. Only at KFC. Prices and participation may vary while supplies last. Taxes, tips, and fees extra.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, you could go big time. The next time you're out to dinner with friends, you can order the shrimp cocktail for the table. And maybe you'll realize it only comes with 4 shrimp after you've already given away 3, but that one shrimp will be so good. And if you switch and save hundreds, you could get shrimp all the time. Switch to Progressive and you could save big time. For shrimp. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
If SportsGrid was a burrito, we'd be the one with steak and carnitas packed so full every bite made your cheeks poof out like Dizzy Gillespie, so the name stuck and now even your mother calls you Dizzy. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Lou Ranaramo canned as defensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals today. Saw that coming from a mile away. Dougie Peterson fired from the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. So he's on the road, but they do keep general manager Trent Baalke, which a lot of people are stunned by. The Giants
Wait,
also...
no, really?
What? You didn't see that?
I slept in a little. I knew you said Doug got let go. They kept Balky though.
Yes, and people are losing their minds saying they have no idea how this is possible at this point. Like, the guy's slippery out here in these streets.
That's
Tough
interesting.
one.
That's
Yep.
interesting.
And Woody Johnson had to put a statement out that said his teenage son has no role with the Jets. So there you go as well.
Okay, wow.
Can you imagine? Hold on. Can you imagine this?
Yeah, go
real
ahead.
quick on the Jets. Your dad, Kevin Walsh Sr., like, you're born and you realize at 12, like, your dad owns the Jets.
Mhm.
You're and you and your dad have a great relationship. Like, the havoc you can cause on that franchise with your dad. Like, understand, like, because we're like, this is ridiculous. But when father and son are close and have similar, likes and interests, you're telling me at the dad's not like, hey, dad, we got to get Aaron Rodgers this year. It's like, you know what? I think you're right, son. Like, his son is giving him input that he's trained. Now, again, the Madden stuff is hilarious as it plays out. But that 16 or 17-year-old kid where he has to put out a statement, he's telling his dad what he thinks should happen. His dad's like, you know what? I think you're right on this. Let's make it happen here. Because your dad can do whatever he wants as the owner.
Yeah, no, maybe that. So is that where the Madden comes from? Is his son gave him the insight?
Like, all the news that we were reading about with Brick Johnson, where he's like, when Albrecht got his first win, Brick Johnson's in there giving like the speech and giving game balls like wide receivers instead of the coach, and like, this is real cringe in here. So yes, like, his son was like telling his dad, 16, 17, in the locker room,
Woody
giving
way
game balls
older than
out.
that? No, I'm not even
Woody's
following the math.
Woody's on like his third wife, I think. So yeah,
All right.
yeah. We got levels with the Johnson kids.
Goodness. Oh my God. All right, let me hold on. Wait, tell me this, though. All right, this is we've been told many times we're allowed to put our eagle hats on radio. What is the future for Doug Peterson? Like, I still care. I'm not pleased to see Doug out there on the streets, like TV analyst, or like
no. You know how the evolution goes. Assistant coach in Kansas City is Matt Nagy. Andy Reid will place him with a franchise. Doug P will go right because they're friends. Go way back. Let me rescue you. You want to sort of wind down your career. I'm calling the plays. Like in the meeting room, friendly guy, championship, people buy in. You come here for 5 years before you retire, make some good money, and we'll go out together. So,
yeah,
that's where he goes.
Well, you think Nagy? You're saying he'll be an offensive coordinator replacing that? Let me tell you this.
Exactly. Yes,
Donnie.
Nagy's got legs out there.
Donnie, if that guy gets a job,
he will.
They're going to burn the whole thing down.
I don't know.
He cannot.
I don't know.
But
here's the best part. Everybody that is under Andy Reid gets placed somewhere except for Eric Bieniemy.
Correct. I know. But Nagy already was, right? And him getting interviews is to me nothing, because Eric Bieniemy broke the records for most interviews anyway. So if he ultimately were to be hired, I think that would just be total chaos.
By the way, we do still have, I'm glad I brought that up, season awards are still out here. You're telling me Kevin O'Connell is still minus 750 after that performance?
Great tweet by you. I thought a great tweet by you.
What was it?
The O'Connell thing.
So many good ones.
I didn't think about it.
So, like, I couldn't even think of those. Usually I can pinpoint, like, so many good tweets have been fired in the past 24 hours. Like, I don't even know which one you're talking about today. So, explain to the people.
Oh, man. All right, Donnie makes the point, though, over there on X.
Yes.
Like Kevin O'Connell's final, insert on the resume was getting embarrassed on national television with the one seat on the line.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if Sean Payton doesn't swoop in, or Dan Campbell.
That's what I'm saying, though. And forget about Andy Reid, who has the best team in the NFL, but if you have a good team, you can never be a good head coach. So there's that out here. But the fact that, I should have woke up this morning and saw Dan Campbell move to the favorite. You know what I would have said? It was head-to-head twice this year. They won twice, and they embarrassed you. And O'Connell's not Brian Flores. He is the offensive guru that got put in a body bag last night, and he's still going to win this thing? Come on.
Now, it's funny because I would still say, overall, his season was wildly impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dan Quinn's out there as well. But again, it was. I don't have a problem with it. And I think the number moved a little bit. But it would, this is what I was telling someone about Josh Allen. And I don't know what the Josh Allen price is now. Or it's off the board, is it? All right. I would have not laid the minus 250, minus 350 with Josh Allen. Because ultimately it just doesn't seem like I would never bet minus 750 that the O'Connell loss doesn't damage him. People love Dan Campbell.
Yeah, they do, especially around the league. And also just the way it played out, it's perfect. Like, they're the number one seed. They're the favorite to win the Super Bowl. They just embarrassed the second-place team, and the second-place team coach is now like, yeah, like, what happens? Like, this Coach of the Year, when does the voting take place, actually? Because do they, like, vote after the season? Like, Kevin O'Connell goes out to the West Coast, gets smashed by the Rams? You know what I mean? Like, how he's still Coach of the Year after back-to-back horrible performances?
It gets settled before then. It won't get handed out until much later.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Campbell stole it, though. 15-2. I don't know. It wouldn't stun me.
Sure.
Now, yeah, like both coordinators are about to get hired and everything. Like, it's gonna be, I don't know. It's gonna get interesting, man, in Detroit.
It is. You know what else is getting interesting? Down in South Beach after that performance by the Miami Dolphins going up against the Jets, which is a two-pronged attack here. But the one that I think everybody's watching is Tyreek Hill in the fourth quarter is like, man, I'm not going back in that football game. And then press conference with Mike McDaniel goes, well, he didn't have an injury. I was informed he wasn't playing, so I have to worry about the people competing on the field. And then Tyreek Hill just signed a massive extension with the Dolphins. Like, you know what? I'll probably just leave this team in the offseason, go somewhere and make some good money and win champion. Like, that's really how the NFL works. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. Boy, they are in for some turmoil. Because also, Kevin, on top of that, talking this morning with Ben, I was telling us, like, are we even sure, like Tua's got, like, every injury in the book every single year, misses a ton of games. Like, they're in a mess, man. The Miami Dolphins' future?
Like, Tyreek Hill just making sure that his value is way worse out the door.
Yes.
Like you couldn't have just kept it in-house for a week.
Got a couple catches, got out there, talked to Drew Rosenhaus. This is what it is, man. Hot topics flying on a Monday right here on the Sports Grid Network.
It's a choice.
Roll the dice
Or listen to us. Luck is finding a good parking spot. Strategy is getting the winning edge. This is the Sports Grid Radio Network. The new SportsGrid app is now available on iOS and the App Store. Experience the ultimate sports betting companion that provides personalized content from your favorite hosts. In-depth matchup previews, game and prop picks, live odds, stats, scores, and more. All in one place. And of course, on the SportsGrid app, you can tune into our live television and radio coverage anytime. On the go, wherever you are. Download the SportsGrid app on the iOS App Store now. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. SportsGrid Radio presents Gridiron Greats.
Running back Walter Payton set the then NFL rushing title in 1984, passing Jim Brown. Sweetness was a rare combination of power, speed, and agility. In 1999, Payton lost his life at the age of 45. Former teammate Dan Jiggins.
He was, at all stops along the way, the most ferocious competitor that I've ever seen.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
The early line.
Denver has to win in order to reach the playoffs. So this is a team that will lay it all out there because they realize there is no tomorrow. They still control their destiny. So they will have an opportunity here to lay it all out, make sure this game's over quicker than later, right? They just need to win. There's no style points.
It's the early line with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Weekdays, 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on the Sports Grid Radio Network.
You're listening to the voice of authority.
Sports gaming strategies and information on daily sporting events.
In other words,
information you can take to the bank. We are your trusted source for gaming, odds, and more. This is the Sports Grid Radio Network.
A lot of teams in the offseason looking for coaches, looking for new players, but we are now in Super Wildcard Weekend. The only two teams that won't participate are the champions of their regular season conference. That's the Kansas City Chiefs on one side, and on the opposite side, it's the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions are favored, at least at FanDuel, plus 300 Or excuse me, is it 600 plus? No, hold on. How did I get that wrong? What's the Super Bowl odds? Let me see. 320 and 370. Okay. So Detroit to win the Super Bowl plus 320, Kansas City plus 370. Is that right for you? Does that feel right? Lions are the favorite?
No,
It doesn't
not
feel right
really.
for me.
No.
I think it's Kansas City.
Yeah, the problem is, though, Donnie, with it being Kansas City,
Mm-hmm.
is you would say there's no chance. Now, there's always a chance, but you get me.
Mm-hmm.
That they avoid both Buffalo and Baltimore, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now, obviously, they're only going to have to play one of those teams, which is the big
Yes.
benefit. But the spread of that game, it might be wrong, Donnie. But at this rate, it's going to basically be pick, right? I mean, goodness, the way they're pricing the Ravens, who I saw just jumped over Buffalo, they might lay at Arrowhead. Where for Detroit, and now I don't agree with it, but it looks like with Detroit winning the way they did against Minnesota, Donnie, they'll probably be a field goal plus against anybody in the NFC. That's what it feels like to me.
You know what's funny, too, with the Detroit Lions? You figure it's like, hey, they're going to have to, do this or that. Like the Eagles, technically on paper, which I know a lot of people are getting nervous about. You're going to face a good football team anywhere you go. Every one of these teams are going to get nervous. I think the Eagles are going to beat the Packers. I think the Eagles will win game number 2 against whoever it is. But it does look like Detroit is going to get the bye, get Minnesota, and then get Philadelphia. Like I understand they hammered Minnesota. Still a divisional opponent. Maybe they make adjustments in there. Maybe Detroit doesn't play as good on defense. So things can change. But there's no easy route, it looks like, on either side for most of these teams just to advance. I was just really impressed with the way Detroit played, and rightfully so. I think they should be the favorites in the NFC. But I just still look at Kansas City and like, we're going to do this again, Kevin. Sitting in New Orleans, a week ahead of the game, Andy Reid, 2 weeks to prepare, completely fully healthy. And it's like, well, what did you expect? Kansas City is going to win their 3rd straight Super Bowl at this point. Like if they get there, if it is Detroit and it's Kansas City. Now, let's just say also Detroit ends up beating the Philadelphia Eagles on their way there, which would be a big win. Are we still looking at like, okay, well, I think Detroit's going to win because we played that last year. No way, shape, or form that Kansas City team should have beat that San Francisco team. No way, shape, or form. But they did.
No, but Detroit will be favored in that game, which is just like the Niners were, Donnie.
Yep.
Right? They'll be favored. I will tell you this, and I actually don't think many people should really disagree with this. The NFL should really, really hope that the Kansas City Chiefs do not win the Super Bowl this year. In fact, they should hope that they don't make the Super Bowl. Because the last thing the NFL needs, Donnie, is for things to mirror some of the unfortunate aspects of the NBA. When the Cavs or the Warriors were having a down regular season, and you go, yeah, it doesn't really matter, though.
Yeah.
Flip it on the playoffs. You do not now need the NFL regular season, Donnie, not mattering. And if the Chiefs go out there and flip it and turn it on, that's where we are. Doesn't matter. And nobody should want that. Listen, if you have Chiefs tickets, you're a Chiefs fan. One, you've been telling yourself that that's what they did last year and will do this year. So I understand you want it. Nobody else should want that. If you have no other tickets, if you are just like, hey, man, I'm excited for football this year, you should then hope the Chiefs' opening round performance is getting absolutely smashed because they can't turn it on. And the Chargers and Harbaugh run them out of the building or whomever it may be.
Yeah. No, it's right, because then you start to say, well, regular season, just fast forward, which is something we never do in the NFL. Quick look at some of the props, Kevin. I was looking last night, like Saquon over 100.5 yards as his rushing prop. Figured to be shot out of a can in that game. Josh Jacobs, 75.5. I think up there they have to have QB props up. Let's see, passing props. Hurts, 212.5. Jordan Love, 226.5. You love Jordan Love props. Getting on some Jordan Love action?
No.
I easily cashed my under yesterday.
That was tough. I will say, not only was it a good day for you, like, of course, but like at least you had the Love over, landing with like 60 yards. You're like, listen, man, Bijan on the ground. And not that I thought he wouldn't get work on the ground, Like, listen, I think the receiving game will work out. Apparently, Michael Penix has never thrown a football to a running back in his life. 5 targets, 1 reception, -1 yard. I'm like, all right.
It's supposed to be the easiest play a young quarterback can make. Dump it off from the flat to an electric running back. He's like, man, I just can't. You're too fast for me, brother. Throwing balls all over the place. We'll catch you guys tomorrow in another edition of Moneyline. For JP behind the wheels of steel, it's Donnie and Kevin. We'll see you.
Everywhere. You can get SportsGrid on the radio, TV, the internet. We've got your number, Sporto. That shirt doesn't match. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
The matchup in Frisco, Texas. Montana State 15-0 this season. North Dakota State 13-2. The Broncos clinched their first playoff berth since 2015 with a win over Kansas City 38-0 at Mile High on Sunday. Denver capturing the 7th and final playoff spot in the AFC. The Chiefs rested most of their starters with the AFC's top seed already locked up. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Welcome back to College Bowl season. And now it looks like a fan has run onto the field carrying a $5 KFC bowl.
Oh, yeah, looks like the mac and cheese bowl with 5 original recipe nuggets, or the new Nashville hot loaded fry bowl with nuggets, coleslaw, secret recipe fries, pickles, and Nashville hot sauce. Wow, looks yummy from up here.
Boy, everybody wants that bowl as more fans are pouring onto the field. Hey, Phil.
Get the only bowls that matter this season. 5 delicious bowls, just $5 each. Only at KFC. Prices and participation may vary. Supplies last. Taxes, tips, and fees extra.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, you could go big time. The next time you're out to dinner with friends, you can order the shrimp cocktail for the table. And maybe you'll realize it only comes with 4 shrimp after you've already given away 3, but that one shrimp will be so good. And if you switch and save hundreds, you could get shrimp all the time. Switch to Progressive and you could save big time. For shrimp. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
No way football is playing in the fall and winter because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
A new week starts right here, right now, live on Football Full Circle, all a part of the SportsGrid Radio Network and Sirius XM Channel 159. We are here on a Monday following the end of the National Football League regular season to look back on everything that we saw from the regular season finale weekend, the playoff spots that were secured, the seeds that were clinched around the NFL postseason, even the draft order for 2025 and this upcoming April, and all that is happening with the big breaking news of a day in NFL circles known as Black Monday, a day that many an NFL head coach might be looking for a new job. All of that here in this next hour up until 1 p.m. Eastern. He is the mastermind of the pigskin. That is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. And Joe, there is so much to get to here on FFC.
Yeah, what a great week of NFL action yesterday, right? Final regular season game. We had a lot of meaningless games and a lot of games that really took precedence, including the Sunday nighter in Detroit. We saw a battle for the number 1 seed in terms of the NFC, and it lived up to the billing in terms of the first half of that matchup, right? Second half, Detroit dominated from a defensive perspective, pulls away. But all these games were in right down to the wire. The upsets, Carolina over Atlanta. You saw New Orleans push Tampa Bay potentially into the fourth quarter. Those games were great yesterday. And we see now, too, names being mentioned for not just head coaching jobs. Names like David Shaw with the Saints, but how about Arthur Smith with the New York Jets as OC? They don't even have a head coach, and they're worried about an OC. Amazing. Typical New York Jets, Ben.
The coaching cycle is spinning around the National Football League. That we know for sure. On our show today, we will recap the entirety of the final weekend of the regular season, its significance for a playoff race or that chase of the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft, what the postseason looks like around the NFL in either conference, and of course the head coaching carousel now in the NFL. Joe, when it came to the end of this regular season. Game 272, the true and final regular season finale around the National Football League in Detroit between the Lions and the Vikings, entering and on paper as good of a regular season finale as one could ever dream of, with all the stakes on the line. The winner, the 1 seed in the NFC, the champions of the NFC North. The loser, the top wild card seed, and a trip on the road to start off the postseason. So, Joe, with all of that on the line, it was the Lions prevailing on Sunday night at home. 31-9, the victory for Detroit. The Lions cover as a 2.5-point home favorite. They end out the year 11-5 against the spread as the favored side this season. And Joe, one of the highest totals we had seen in nearly half a decade in the NFL, closing at 56.5, stayed well under. A Detroit team, a Detroit defense that has been so banged up with key and significant injuries throughout the year, put on a marvelous defensive performance last night against Sam Darnold and the Vikings to win 31-9.
Yeah, Aaron Glenn and that defensive staff did a fantastic job. They held Minnesota to field goals and not touchdowns, and we saw Sam Darnold become mortal, right? The previous week he throws for 377 against the Green Bay Packers. This game he was under 225, limited short to underneath throws, underneath coverage, and that front seven and even the blitz packages that they utilized got pressure early and often, and Sam Darnold forced the football out of his hands quickly. And again, when you run the football, Jahmyr Gibbs over 100 yards, right? They held basically a 4-point halftime lead, 10-6. They extend in the second half. This was a team, Ben, entering that game was 6-2 at home, Detroit. They had won those games by an average margin of victory of 18.8 points per game. But the last 3 games at home, lost to Buffalo, won narrowly against both Green Bay and Chicago. They were on display last night, deserving of the number 1 overall seed. Great job by Dan Campbell and the crew.
Entering last year, the Lions as a franchise had failed to win a divisional championship for 3 decades. Now they've won 2 straight in the NFC North. And for a franchise hoping to make even more history with a deep playoff run, having the 1 seed is important, critical, and, in fact, historic. It is the first time in the history of Detroit's football team they will be the 1 seed in the NFC. They'll get home field advantage. They'll have to play inside Ford Field. No outdoor trips throughout these cold months of January into early February. And, Joe, the path to an NFC championship runs through the Motor City. Beyond that, a Lions team that had the back end of their season defined by those key injuries now gets an additional week, the bye, to rest up, as well as the 1 seed in the NFC. Just a huge game for Jahmyr Gibbs. 28 total touches, 170 scrimmage yards, 4 total touchdowns, 3 on the ground. The only passing touchdown of the game, Jared Goff to Jahmyr Gibbs. And Joe, on the other side, Detroit entered this game in its last 4, allowing 32.5 points per game on average. A Lions defense wrecked by injury. How would they fare against Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson, Cam Akers, and even Aaron Jones healthy, playing at an elite level? They held that Minnesota offense down. The worst game of Sam Darnold's year in the Twin Cities. 18 of 41, his season low completion percentage, 166 yards, his season low in terms of yardage output. It is why the Lions are the 1 seed in the NFC, and the Vikings are the 5.
Yeah, it really changed, I want to say, after the Vikings' first possession of the second half. What happens? Cam Akers rips off basically a 50-yard run. They're inside the red zone opportunity. They go for it on 4th down. They don't get it yet again, right? They roll the dice. They don't get it. They force Sam Darnold into a bad throw. And from that point on, Detroit just took over from an offensive perspective. Again, they limited Justin Jefferson. They limited Aaron Jones. All of those playmakers. Hawkinson, only 2 catches for 9 yards. That was a great effort by that secondary. And again, Aaron Glenn for dialing up blitz packages, making Sam Darnold feel uncomfortable, not giving him time to locate those wide receivers. It was a great defensive game plan. Now, can they maintain that throughout the number 1 seed? Because, you look at it, great, they're at home, but both of their losses this year, in fact, came at home, not on the road. So you can never say never. when you look at the 2 losses to Buffalo and Tampa Bay, we'll see if the Bucs are there. But just a great effort by Dan Campbell, deserving head coaching, of the year candidate, him and O'Connell. But to get back to the number 1 seed, to be in striking distance, dominant effort last night.
And at the end of the regular season, where things stand currently, the Lions are the favorites to win Super Bowl 59. Detroit, as a franchise, has won NFL championships, but back in the late 1950s, never in the Super Bowl era in the modern day of the National Football League, certainly not since the merger in 1970. So the Lions hoping home field advantage and being in the Motor City is enough to pull off a historic playoff run. The Lions have never even played in a Super Bowl, let alone win a Lombardi trophy. Joe, meanwhile, for the Vikes, they will be on the road exactly 1 week from today, a Monday night to end out Super Wild Card weekend against the Rams. Minnesota, 2.5-point favorite, even on the road in Los Angeles. Does your view of the Vikings change at all after the result last night?
No, I mean, again, is Sam Darnold that guy? We'll see. He needs to bounce back with a better effort, long-term for the Minnesota Vikings. But again, I still believe in this team. Was it, their best effort? No. But again, think about how they rolled off. They had won 9 straight heading into that game. So again, that might be a positive for the Minnesota Vikings now that they got the loss out of the way. They could regroup and make a playoff run.
I don't think the Vikings are nearly as bad as they put on display last night in Detroit, although the sweeping reactions will be there. How the rest of the postseason formed in the NFL. Next.
4 out of 5 scientists agree it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. And we're pretty sure that one scientist is still a virgin. He just gives that vibe. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
A new lawsuit against a Beverly Hills OBGYN brings the total number of alleged sexual abuse victims to 167. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. This update brought to you by Progressive. The additional plaintiffs joined 60 other former patients who were accusing 74-year-old Dr. Barry J. Brock of sexually exploitative and abusive material dating back several decades. Brock was a member of the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center until 2018 and had clinical privileges there until last year. The lawsuit claims Cedars-Sinai and other medical practices concealed his actions. The IRS reminds taxpayers a tax filing extension for residents of 24 states affected by disasters is coming to an end in 2025. Those who received a grace period to file their 2023 returns will have to file by early February or May, depending on where they live. The extension was offered to eligible individuals and businesses affected by disasters that happened during the late spring through the end of 2024. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Hey, you've definitely had a busy month. Finding gifts, sending cards, hosting family. Well, now it's time to treat yourself at Macy's After Christmas Sale. Come and find great deals on something just for you. Like 25% off New Year's party looks from DKNY, Adriana Papel, and more. So enjoy the week and get yourself the gifts you really wanted before these limited time deals are over. At Macy's After Christmas Sale. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
This holiday season, Capital One reminds you to give yourself the gift of 1.5% cash back with the Capital One Quicksilver Card.
Can I earn 1.5% cash back on birds? Birds? What if you sent your true love 2 turtle doves plus a partridge in a pear tree?
Sure, but why would anyone want that?
The song was very convincing.
Earn 1.5% cash back on all your holiday purchases with the Capital One Quicksilver Card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
There's something you should know and always remember. SportsGrid does not increase luck. We're your unfair advantage for the latest sports gaming information. If you're looking for luck, go find a horseshoe. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
It all came down to Game 272, the regular season finale in Detroit, to decide the NFC North champion and the number 1 and 5 seeds in the NFC playoff picture. The Lions win the NFC North, take home the 1 seed. The Vikings will be the 5 seed, that top wild card team in the NFC playoff picture. How about the NFC South coming down to our final Sunday of the regular season? It should have been rather simple. The Buccaneers more than a 2-touchdown favorite at home against the New Orleans Saints. Tampa, an outright victory, claims the NFC South for a fourth consecutive season. If for some reason the Bucs were to falter and the Falcons beat the Panthers, then Atlanta could win the NFC South. Joe, we start with Tampa. I said it should have been simple. It was anything but ultimately the Buccaneers win a divisional crown for a fourth straight year. 27-19, the victory for the Bucs against the Saints. New Orleans does cover as that 14.5-point road underdog. But it was New Orleans up by double digits, 16-6 at the break before Tampa rallied in the second half. And Joe, when they held down the Saints offense in the final minute as New Orleans was trying to make it a game, the Bucs got the ball back, and instead of kneeling it out to let the game expire, they had to get some incentive and historic money to Mike Evans. 9-yard completion to Mike Evans that put him over 1,000 for all 11 years of his NFL career. 11 consecutive, matching a record set by Jerry Rice, and $3 million to boot. Overall, not a cover, but a very ceremonious day for the Buccaneers in Tampa.
Oh, yeah. If you took the dogs yesterday, you were rolling in cash, right? You watched that game play out. What was it, 16-3 at one point? New Orleans had a lead. I mean, it was amazing. And knowing how New Orleans had played the week before against the Las Vegas Raiders, where they were just gutless from an offensive perspective, they get abused 25-10. To go on the road, it looked like Tampa should have ran away with it. And all of a sudden, New Orleans hit them in the mouth, right? They build a first-half lead, but credit Baker, credit that offense. They hit some big plays over the top to Jalen McMillan when the score was 19-13. They get the lead, and then once they got the lead, they never surrendered. And that's what you want to see from a playoff caliber team. They were deserving, in my opinion, to win the division. They got, derailed with the Evans and Godwin injuries early, but they were clearly the more complete team throughout the regular season than the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, Joe, it's a really good point, by the way, from what you just mentioned on Sunday for the idea of motivation in a regular season finale that looks very different than every other handicapping weekend in the NFL. If there was a team that needed either to win a game for playoff spots, to earn a berth, or playoff positioning, that being a different seed line against a team that did not need it, and thus that team booked either as the underdog or, in the case of the Jets, a slight home favorite. The team that did not need anything in terms of playoff significance was 5-2 against the spread, including 4-2 ATS in those 6 games as a dog, like we saw out of New Orleans. Ultimately, the Buccaneers hold on. They claim the NFC South. They will be the 3 seed in the NFC playoff picture because the Rams, as Sean McVay has told us, if the Rams don't need to win a game, if it seems even remotely meaningless, he is going to rest his starters. So LA did not play their key players on Sunday at home against Seattle. The Seahawks, a 7-point favorite, do not cover, but win 30-24 as Geno Smith throws for a career-best 4 touchdowns. And Joe, because of all the incentives on the line for Geno and Seattle on Sunday, 10 wins, yardage, touchdowns, Geno Smith cashes in with a win to end the year, not a playoff berth, but at least nearly $6 million in contract incentives.
Yeah, he needed, 185 and I think 1 or 2 touchdowns to hit those. He throws for 4, 225. And again, you were hoping out of Geno Smith in the middle part of the season when they played teams like Green Bay, right? And even played teams like LA down the stretch in their building. They couldn't pull those games out, and it's unfortunate. First good year for Mike McDonald. Seattle was a middle-of-the-road team. Yeah. I don't think they're elite like some of the teams that we've seen, obviously Detroit, Minnesota, but they're a team that potentially could build in terms of 2025. You didn't see, obviously, the playmakers step up, JSN or DK Metcalf. It was Noah Fant. But again, for McDonald, the first-year head coach, to have 10 wins and see the defense at least elevate to an above-average unit, that's what you want in terms of your first year as a head coach.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Joe. And the Seahawks did clinch a 12th winning season in the last 13. Seattle, the only team to reach double-digit wins in the NFL, that being 10, and not earn a playoff spot. What ultimately cost the Hawks this year in front of the 12s, where often it is a very vaunted venue, they were 3-6, 7-1 on the road for Seattle. But, Joe, I mentioned elsewhere in the what? Yeah, it is.
No, I'm just saying, when you see a team that's 10-7 and they're 7-1 on the road, you would think that they would be a playoff caliber team. They just couldn't win at home, which is completely ironic.
It is insane, Joe. All 7 teams that made the playoffs in either conference had at least double-digit wins. No 9-8 wild card or divisional winners. So 15 in total had at least a 10-7 record. Seattle being the 15th and only that did not make the postseason. Joe, when you look at where things were around the NFC South, the Buccaneers needed to win to claim the division in a playoff spot. Because they do so, and the Rams lose at home, Tampa the 3 seed, they'll host the Commanders on Sunday night. Again, the Rams the 4 seed, they will host the Minnesota Vikings as a slight home dog on Monday night to end out our 6 matchups of Super Wild Card Weekend. There was a time where Tampa was trailing, of course, New Orleans, where it seemed like the Falcons might have the door wide open to win the NFC South, but Atlanta needed to at least beat the Panthers. They couldn't even do that. Carolina in OT wins 44-38 in Atlanta, outright as a 7.5-point underdog.
There's one word, gutless, and I've said it all year long. This was not the team that everybody thought. We anointed the Atlanta Falcons as being the dark horse with Raheem Morris. This was Arthur Smith 2.0, and this team never stepped up in a big spot, and they deserve not to make the playoffs.
Yep, certainly so. The odds-on favorites after the acquisition of Kirk Cousins in the offseason. He didn't even end the year as the starter, and Atlanta missed out on the playoffs with a losing record. More on Football Full Circle next.
There's smart
And there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here and win.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1983, Dallas running back Tony Dorsett sets an NFL record with a 99-yard touchdown run to lead the Cowboys to a 31-27 victory over the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football. And in 1971, the first AFC Championship at Memorial Stadium, the Baltimore Colts beat the Oakland Raiders 27-17. For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
University College of London scientists have created the world's thinnest spaghetti. And by thin, this electro-spun nanofiber pasta makes your grandfather's angel hair look like a redwood tree trunk. At 372 nanometers, that's 14,000 billionths of an inch thick. It can only be seen with an electron microscope. Made of safe edible starch for medical drug delivery and porous bandages that let moisture in and keep bacteria out. Cooks up for dinner in just a second. However, only one problem.
I can't see it.
Follow me at Chicapalvo on X and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
The early line.
Denver has to win in order to reach the playoffs. So this is a team that will lay it all out there because they realize there is no tomorrow. They still control their destiny, so they will have an opportunity here to lay it all out, make sure this game's over quicker than later, right? They just need to win. There's no style points.
It's the early line with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Weekdays, 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on the SportsGrid Radio Network. Wherever you go,
there you are.
Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge anywhere.
Even while the wife's talking to you.
If you got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
How the NFC South was won on the final Sunday of the NFL regular season. It wasn't easy for the Bucs. They come back from a double-digit halftime deficit to edge out the New Orleans Saints to claim the NFC South divisional crown for a 4th consecutive season. The Falcons had a chance, but they needed to beat the Panthers Atlanta could not even do that. The story, Joe, as we said, is the Falcons' failure this season. An odds-on favorite to win this division, a perceived contender in the NFC with the offseason acquisition of Kirk Cousins. It was anything but. But outside of Atlanta's struggles this year, what a season it was for Bryce Young. The number 1 overall pick from 2023. Struggled during his rookie campaign. First year under Dave Canales, was benched by the end of the opening month after an injury to Andy Dalton. Returned as the starter for the final 10 games for Carolina. They won 4 as an underdog in 9 of the 10. They covered 7 times. And Joe, yesterday against the Falcons, 251 from Young, 3 touchdowns through the air, 2 more rushing touchdowns. What an end to a season it was for the Panthers, where it almost feels solidified now that Bryce Young is the quarterback of this franchise moving forward, and they can build with some offseason optimism.
Yeah, absolutely. And their preseason total was 5.5, so right under that. Yep. But they played much better in terms of the submission of Bryce Young in terms of the offense, right? He struggled early on, but then when he got back involved, he almost led upsets against the Philadelphia Eagles and Kansas City Chiefs, and that's what you want to see, right? He's elevated his game. This was his best performance, but I believe it's his only 3 touchdown performance in his career. I know because I've been betting it from week to week. He had 2 touchdowns, throws for over 250. You want to see, obviously, some other playmakers outside of Adam Thielen. Jalen Coker steps up with a huge performance yesterday, but you need a pure number 1. That is the biggest thing for this offense in Carolina. Let's build out the weapons on the offensive side of the ball. Let's add some additions, free agency on the defensive side of the ball. And who knows, from an offensive perspective now, they could go toe-to-toe with Atlanta and certainly with some of the other teams like New Orleans. I don't know if they're as elite as Tampa Bay just yet, but they could build out in the offseason.
Absolutely so. A great end of the year for Bryce Young and company in Charlotte in year number 1 under Dave Canales. So as we shared, the Lions are the 1 seed. The Eagles already clinched the 2 seed a weekend ago, and they beat the Giants 20-13 in the regular season finale in Philadelphia with their backups covering as a 3.5-point home favorite. We'll talk more about the G-Men and New York's future a little bit later on. The 3 seed is Tampa. The 4 seed is LA. The 5 seed, courtesy of a loss in game 272, the Vikings. What about the 6 and 7 in the NFC? Again, it should have been relatively simple. Washington in pole position, nearly a touchdown favorite at the start in Dallas. The Commanders win. They claim the 6 seed. Washington trailed, Joe, through a good majority of that game. Jaden Daniels got the start for the Commanders, booked as a 6.5-point road favorite, but did not play much outside of the opening quarter. So Marcus Mariota had to lead a comeback for Washington. The Commanders got the ball back with just over 3 minutes remaining. Mariota leads Washington on an 11-play, 91-yard touchdown drive that culminated in a 5-yard touchdown toss from Mariota to Terry McLaurin with just 3 seconds left. Washington wins 23-19. Washington earns the number 6 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, wheels Mariota, because I needed that game, okay? So it's 19-16. They have 33 seconds left. They have, I believe, a second down, and Mariota rips off like a 35-yard run to put them inside the red zone. They roll the dice with Kingsbury. He hits Terry McLaurin. Unbelievable catch. They win the game, stick the dagger in terms of the Dallas Cowboys, and McLaurin becomes, I believe, the most touchdowns in a season by a wide receiver for Washington. Dynamic effort. He only had 5 receiving yards, Ben, at the half. It was Zach Ertz. It was those secondary options. Once Mariota got in terms of the final drive, he looked at Terry McLaurin and he stepped up. Let me tell you, 12 wins for Washington in year 1 for Dan Quinn. Amazing. I'll tell you this. To me, he's head coach of the year. To do it with that ball club and, more importantly, a rookie quarterback. I know O'Connell stepped up, but unbelievable job by that offensive staff yesterday and an all-around effort.
Terry McLaurin has been one of the most productive wide receivers in the NFL, but for the first 5 years of his career, never had consistent quarterback play. With Jaden Daniels, and even yesterday with Mariota, 13 receiving touchdowns. He had never had more than 7 in his first 5 years in the league. We'll talk more about the NFC and the AFC playoff picture up next.
The Winning Edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it, because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. The FCS championship is tonight when Montana State and North Dakota State battle. Montana State looking for their second all-time championship. Meanwhile, North Dakota State back in the final for the 11th time in 14 years. They knocked Montana State out of the playoffs in 2018, 2019, 2021, and 2023. They won 8 of 9 titles between 2011 and 2019. They're looking for their second championship at the 2020s. The matchup in Frisco, Texas. Montana State 15-0 this season. North Dakota State 13-2. The Broncos clinched their first playoff berth since 2015 with a win over Kansas City 38-0 at Mile High on Sunday. Denver capturing the 7th and final playoff spot in the AFC. The Chiefs rested most of their starters with the AFC's top seed already locked up. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Now's the time to shop limited time doorbuster deals during Pro Savings Days at Lowe's. Save $50 on a Little Giant King Combo 6-foot ladder. Was $199, now $149. Plus, save $100 on a DeWalt XR 20-volt Power Stack 5 amp-hour battery. Was $199, now $99. Get these can't-miss deals now before they're gone. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Doorbusters valid 1/13 through 1/15. Selection varies by location while supplies last.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
You're listening to SportsGrid.
Spreading the winning edge far and wide.
Terrestrial, internet, TV, satellite, and don't forget our mobile app.
Face it.
The winning edge is everywhere.
Somewhere there's a squirrel frustrated he can't get a phone.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
There was a moment in the regular season finale Sunday around the NFL where it seemed as though the Commanders might lose on the road in Dallas, opening the door for the Green Bay Packers to take the 6th seed in the NFC playoff picture. Important because you don't really want to head to Philadelphia to start off your NFC playoff run against the 2 seed in the Eagles. And Green Bay was trying, despite Jordan Love being out of the game early with an elbow injury against the Bears. In fact, in that bitter and heated rivalry on a cold day in Lambeau, the two teams exchanged 50-plus yard field goals in the final minute of regulation that decided the result. First, it was Brandon McManus drilling a 55-yarder with 54 seconds left to give Green Bay a lead, 22-21. But Caleb Williams and Chicago had the answer. This time, Cairo Santos was not blocked by Green Bay, but converted a 51-yarder as time expired to snap a variety of skids for the Bears yesterday, ending an 11-game losing streak against their bitter foes in the Packers' first win for Chicago in Green Bay since 2015, and just snapped overall a 10-game losing skid for the Bears during the 2024 NFL regular season. It wouldn't have mattered for the Packers because the Commanders won, but Green Bay does lose to Chicago with a sour taste in its mouth to end the regular season. The Packers will be the 7th seed, having to go to Philadelphia on Sunday to start off the postseason.
Yeah, and it erased that earlier loss in Soldier Field where they got blocked on the last play of the game to allow Green Bay to win that game 20-19, right? So it was a good effort for Chicago. You mentioned a 10-game losing streak. They were 0-7, Ben, on the road entering that game. So they pick up their first road win, which is amazing. They had lost those games by right around 8 points per game on the road this year. So that's what you want to see. Go out on a positive note. I will say, if you and take the other side, we won't look at Chicago as much as Green Bay. I'm concerned now because if you're back in Green Bay, Jordan Love, the groin, the ankle, now the elbow, that's a cause of concern if this team's going to make a run. You don't want to expose your quarterback in that type of situation. But now he's got these nagging injuries. You've got to be concerned in terms of any type of playoff situation, especially if you're playing the Philadelphia Eagles. You're going to need Jordan Love's best effort. And again, he throws for 69 yards. Christian Watson's been banged up. And look at the last 4 games outside of yesterday. He's only averaged 200 passing yards per game. Guess what? Green Bay, you need to throw for much more if you're going to defeat the Philadelphia Eagles. So we'll see how this plays out.
Jordan Love, a right elbow contusion is what the Packers are calling it. The Pro Football Doc, Lisi's best friend, Dr. David Chow, came on the early line earlier today and said it was a funny bone issue, and had it been necessary, Love could have returned. He does not expect Jordan Love to miss any time throughout the playoffs. However, Christian Watson exited the game with a knee injury once again, more than likely out for an extended period. Not a great way for Green Bay to enter what will be a very difficult road test to start off the postseason in Philadelphia. The Eagles now a 4.5-point favorite. We'll talk opening round matchups a little bit later on. So that is the NFC playoff picture. Now over to the AFC. A couple things at stake in the regular season finale weekend that mainly, Joe, started on Saturday with our doubleheader in the AFC North. The Ravens closing as a 19.5 or 20.5-point favorite against Cleveland, needing just to win outright against the Browns at home, clinching the AFC North. Baltimore did that, and even with a cover, winning 35-10. Big game for Derrick Henry on the ground in that second half. The Ravens, Joe, an AFC North Divisional Championship for a second consecutive year, a 35-10 rout of the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, when you rush for 6.3 yards per carry, hold Cleveland to 3.2 yards per rush, win the turnover battle, guess what? You're going to have a dominating home win, and that's what Baltimore did. And when Derrick Henry runs and pounds the rock for over 100 yards, we know that Lamar Jackson's effective. I'm not saying, listen, Lamar Jackson has had a statistical phenomenal season. He throws for 217, 2 touchdowns. But there were moments in that game, and I said it to Donnie and Kevin, and I'll say it to you. He looked inconsistent at times. I'm saying 4th down decisions, again, inside the red zone. You cannot have that for Lamar Jackson. That is still going to make or break Baltimore's season. Can he make the right decisions with the playoffs on the line in terms of that type of situation? I need to see it before I believe it. They have been inconsistent at times, but that was a dominant home win.
And now it will be the story for the Ravens. The lack of playoff success Lamar Jackson has had in his NFL career, just 2-4 straight up. The Ravens, the 3 seed in the AFC North. Because Baltimore beat Cleveland big, the Ravens clinched the AFC North. So where things stand around the AFC playoff picture into that second game of the doubleheader on Saturday, the Steelers could no longer win the division, but with a win at home in a game against the Bengals, Pittsburgh could clinch the 5 seed. Important, you'd rather head to Houston than to your divisional foes in Baltimore. The Bengals needed to win and then had to have a lot of help on Sunday to keep their playoff hopes alive. Since he won, Joe, 19-17 on Saturday, Pittsburgh does cover as a slight 2.5-point home underdog. Chris Boswell made a field goal with about 2.5 minutes remaining. That made that just a 2-point game. Since he ends the year, winners of 5 straight, but when you start 0-3, just too large of a hole, Joe, to climb out of. Can't blame the offense. 277 out of Joe Burrow, 10 grabs, 96 yards for Jamar Chase. He hits the Triple Crown this year, leading the NFL in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. He is due for a big payday. But since the season is over, Joe, for the Steelers, losers of 4 straight entering the postseason, and because they lost and the Chargers won on Sunday, as we'll detail in just a moment, Pittsburgh is the 6th seed in the largest underdog of the opening round of the playoffs, having to head to Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, and they got blown out by Baltimore about, 2 weeks ago, where they caught 6.5, 7 points and lost 34-17. So that's not a good recipe. They're going to have to kick it up a notch. 2 things. I think when you look at that game, bittersweet for Cincinnati. You wasted a magical season by Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but again, you can't lose opening week to the New England Patriots. You can't lose at home. At one point, you were 0-4, 0-5 at home. Unacceptable for a playoff caliber team. I don't care if they were narrow losses. You have to find a way to pull those games out. Defense was absolutely atrocious. And on the flip side for Pittsburgh, yeah, great. Russell Wilson, maybe at one particular time in the middle of the regular season against gutless teams, the Jets and the Giants, was able to statistically stretch defenses over the top. After he throws for 414 in the first matchup against Cincinnati, he's thrown over the last 5 weeks 856 total passing yards. That's only 171 yards per game. I'll ask you again, Mike Tomlin. Is this what you wanted when you elevated from, Justin Fields to Russ Wilson? Because to me, Russ Wilson's absolutely atrocious, and the passing attack with Arthur Smith sucks right now.
I was going to say, who got the last laugh on the desk? Because we know that Donnie Rightside is a big Russell Wilson believer. The Steelers won 6 of the first 7 starts that Russell Wilson made, scoring 26 points in 5 of those 7 at the very least. But in their final 4 losses, Pittsburgh, 17 points or fewer in all 4, 1-3 against the spread as well, all as an underdog, 4 straight L's. Again, the Steelers will be a 9.5-point road dog in the Charm City against the Ravens on Saturday night. It is the largest spread of the entirety of the opening round on Super Wild Card Weekend. So the Steelers do not win on Saturday night, which opened the door for the Chargers on Sunday afternoon in Las Vegas. Did the Bolts beat the Raiders and claim the 5 seed? Spoiler alert, yes, they did. But how LA got it done and what it means for the playoff picture. That's next on Football Full Circle.
We're not saying every SportsGrid listener is a legend, but you might start thinking about who's going to play you in the movie. Just saying. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
A new lawsuit against a Beverly Hills OBGYN brings the total number of alleged sexual abuse victims to 167. With the SportsGrid News Flash, I'm Trey Westerberg. This update brought to you by Progressive. The additional plaintiffs joined 60 other former patients who were accusing 74-year-old Dr. Barry J. Brock of sexually exploitative and abusive material dating back several decades. Brock was a member of the Cedars-Sinai Medical Center until 2018 and had clinical privileges there until last year. The lawsuit claims Cedars-Sinai and other medical practices concealed his actions. The IRS reminds taxpayers a tax filing extension for residents of 24 states affected by disasters is coming to an end in 2025. Those who received a grace period to file their 2023 returns will have to file by early February or May, depending on where they live. The extension was offered to eligible individuals and businesses affected by disasters that happened during the late spring through the end of 2024. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Hey, you've definitely had a busy month. Finding gifts, sending cards, hosting family. Well, now it's time to treat yourself at Macy's After Christmas Sale. Come and find great deals on something just for you. Like 25% off New Year's party looks from DKNY, Adriana Papel, and more. So enjoy the week and get yourself the gifts you really wanted before these limited time deals are over. At Macy's After Christmas Sale. Savings off already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
This holiday season, Capital One reminds you to give yourself the gift of 1.5% cash back with the Capital One Quicksilver Card.
Can I earn 1.5% cash back on birds?
Birds?
What if you sent your true love 2 turtle doves plus a partridge in a pear tree?
Sure, but why would anyone want that?
The song was very convincing.
Earn 1.5% cash back on all your holiday purchases with the Capital One Quicksilver Card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important. That's where we come in. SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning more often. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle. So, the AFC playoff picture, how it came to be, with the results from the final weekend and what it means for the playoff outlook in the AFC. Lacey Guy, because Pittsburgh lost at home on Saturday to the Bengals. The 5 seed up in the air, able for the Chargers to take advantage. That's what they did on Sunday in Sin City. The Bolts, as a 6.5-point favorite against Las Vegas, win 34-20. Covering is nearly a touchdown favorite on the road in Las Vegas. And Justin Herbert, just a monumental day. 346 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Chargers end out the regular season, Joe, 10-2 against the spread when booked as a favorite. They beat up on the teams they were expected to beat.
Yeah, and again, that passing attack over the past few weeks, even though it's a bunch of, no names, no big wide receivers outside of Ladd McConkey, have stepped up. Disley got back involved in regards to the offense. You also saw Quentin Johnson with 100 yards, I believe, right around halftime. He hits a big 50-yarder, another catch. He's actually catching the football. You play like that, you could definitely beat the Houston Texans on the road. It's going to be an intriguing matchup, because Houston, from an offensive perspective, has been a little inconsistent with C.J. Stroud. But you have a quarterback in Justin Herbert that is actually confident. That defense was opportunistic. They got turnovers when it counted yesterday against Aiden O'Connell. And again, this is a team that's 11-6 and 6-3 away from their house. They're a very good team, and we know Harbaugh most likely always has the coaching advantage in big spots.
Herbert, 281 yards or more in the last 3 games for LA. Multiple passing touchdowns in 4 straight to end out the regular season. Only had 4 games in the first 13 for Los Angeles this year with multiple passing touchdowns. The Chargers started out as a ground and pound defensive team, under in 7 of their first 8. Now over in 7 of 9 to end out the regular season. LA will be on the road in Houston to start off our first of 6 matchups on Super Wild Card Weekend. And Joe, I mentioned how prolific the Bolts have been as the favored side this year, 10-2 against the spread. LA is a favorite in H-Town. The Texans winning their 10th game of the season yesterday in Tennessee against the Titans. We'll talk about that game and its implications for the NFL draft in just a matter of moments. So the Chargers, the 5 seed, the Steelers, the 6 seed. Although the Bengals did beat Pittsburgh in the Steel City, Cincy still needed a lot of help on Sunday. It was rather simple for the final playoff spot in the AFC. If the Broncos beat KC's backups as a double-digit home favorite in Mile High, Denver would claim that 7th and final AFC playoff spot. That's exactly what Denver did in a rout, shutting out Kansas City 38-zip. The Broncos and Bo Nix cover as a 10.5-point favorite. But, Joe, when you look at this Broncos team, entered the year with a win total of 5.5. Second year for Sean Payton, rookie season for Bo Nix at the quarterback spot. Anything but a rookie for a good majority of this season, and especially in that finale. 26 of 29, 321 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, was also Denver's leading rusher with 47 yards utilizing the legs. Again, the Broncos win big, 38-zip, covering as a 10.5-point home favorite.
Yeah, and we know that Bo Nix can scoot, right? He had the 70-yard performance earlier in the year against the New Orleans Saints. We know about his mobility, but he's really evolved as a passer, right? And not only that, we know about Courtland Sutton being the number 1 option, but the emergence now in terms of the passing attack with Marvin Mims now being that explosive playmaker. You couple that with Courtland Sutton, now they're not so much one-dimensional anymore, and that offense has evolved and maybe is peaking at just the right time. So can they compete for an AFC championship? Personally, I don't believe so, because some of the other teams, but this is a great spot. And I was wrong about Sean Payton in regards to just this team as a whole. He's elevated them. He's done a fantastic job in coaching them to a playoff appearance in year number 2 with a rookie quarterback. I mean, the sky's the limit for this team moving forward. So we'll see what damage they could do in terms of the playoffs. Going to need to run the football a little bit better than what they did yesterday. But when you put up 38 points, it doesn't matter.
They have not run the football very well this year, but as a favorite, Denver 8-0 against the spread this year, covering by an average margin of better than 2 touchdowns per game. And this is not to toot my own horn, just to show what Bo Nix has done during his rookie season. Joe, I bet his season-long passing yards prop entering the year, the best bet I've ever made from a season-long perspective, 28.50.5. Sailed over by the time we got to week 14. He ends the year with 3,775, nearly over that preseason prop by 1,000 yards. Denver a difficult path, though, as the 7. They got to head to Orchard Park to take on the Bills on Sunday afternoon. 8.5-point dog. A couple of big spreads in the AFC playoff picture in the opening round. Buffalo, 8.5-point favorite against Denver. Baltimore, 9.5-point favorite against the Steelers. And then the Chargers, a road favorite, a 2.5-point spread in favor of LA as they head to Houston.
Yeah, I mean, again, these spreads right now, I lean, and the one thing that stands out for me is the LA-Houston game. Because, again, Houston's offense with C.J. Stroud put up 19 points and 2 points. Yesterday it was Davis Mills that got the win. I need to see C.J. Stroud and that offense elevate in regards to the passing attack. Without Tank Dell and Joe Mixon, if he's contained, what can C.J. Stroud do at home? They've typically played to the unders at home, and when you see this 43.5, to me, Ben, I like the over in that matchup. Again, I think they're going to, utilize the passing attack. You got to score at least 24, I believe, to beat LA. So I like early on, I do lean to Houston and the over, but we'll see how it plays out. In regards to the Denver game, 8.5-point dogs against Buffalo. I can't go against Buffalo in that matchup. I just can't.
Yeah. Listen, the Broncos 8-0 ATS as a favorite, 4-5 against the spread as an underdog, and they have not been a dog often since the opening month and a half of the year when the odds had not really caught up. Denver has not covered much as of late as the underdog against better teams. Joe, already 86% of the money coming in on the Chargers. Could be a very public side if you want to back LA in H-Town. I know Joe Poe feels pretty good about that, but he's really Joe Mo. The NFL draft picture next on FSC.
Luck is winning the lottery. Strategy is settling your divorce before cashing in the ticket.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Moneyline at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to SportsGrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're going to love it, and you're going to love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
The other results from the final weekend of the National Football League regular season and some news early on this Monday. Joe, to determine the number one overall pick for the 2025 NFL Draft, had the Patriots just lost at home to Buffalo, the Pats would be selecting first overall. But Gerard Mayo and Joe Milton, I guess, had other ideas. Joey M's 241, touchdown through the air, another on the ground. The Patriots win outright in Foxborough to beat Buffalo. Because of it, the Patriots will now draft fourth overall. After the game on Sunday evening, Bob Kraft making his decision, firing Gerard Mayo after only 1 year in Foxborough, Joe.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Again, first-year head coach, a complete rebuild, moving on from Bill Belichick, and he only gets 1 year, and actually pretty competitive for the most part. I understand they didn't get the wins, but you developed Drake May to a point where at least he's serviceable to be the starter in terms of year number 2. You got some wins that you didn't think you'd get this year, especially over Buffalo to end the regular season. And think about week 1 where you knock off Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, it's all about developing talent and rebuilding. But again, will Gerard Mayo ever be given another chance? That's the major thing. We've seen this with first-year head coaches. We saw it play out with Houston, with Lovie Smith and Cawley, where they got basically 1 year apiece. And now it happened to Gerard Mayo as well. It's unfortunate, but the owners get to make the decisions. We don't.
I'm not saying it's a direct cause and effect that Gerard Mayo won a game that the Patriots should not have to give up the opportunity to at least hold on to that number one overall pick, which led to his immediate dismissal. And I said 1 year in Foxborough as the head coach, but a longtime assistant under Bill Belichick, won a Super Bowl as a linebacker for the Patriots as well. Apparently, a former Patriots Super Bowl winning linebacker, Mike Vrabel, is at the front of the list to become the new head coach of this Patriots organization. So the Pats win when they shouldn't have. The Browns and the Titans lose. Tennessee will draft first overall, or at least have that number one overall selection. Cleveland 2. The Giants lost to Philadelphia. New York at 3. Joe, we heard from the G-men earlier this morning. Both Brian Daboll, head coach, and Joe Schoen, general manager, set to return in 2025.
Yeah, and I'll just say this. This season was supposed to be the first season in terms of Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen's career. It was just supposed to happen that way. They overexceeded. They beat Minnesota, and all of a sudden they regressed. This is the right move, what they did this year. But again, is Daboll the guy to lead this offense moving forward? I didn't see that. I didn't see the elevation from the quarterback perspective. We saw it in year number 1. We've seen now weapons like Malik Neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson. What do they do from an offensive perspective will dictate whether the New York Giants have their GM and head coach for years to come. Because even if they draft in the top 5 and all of a sudden now they're 2 and, let's say, 15 next year, both of those guys are gone, Ben. So they better hit the ground running in 2025.
Currently slated to pick 3rd overall, but it is becoming very clear in this draft class there's really only 2 quarterback prospects that are going to be considered a top 5, top 10, maybe even first-round pick. That's Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. So the Giants need a quarterback, but might not get the chance to draft a quarterback who could go 1 and 2. And both the Titans and Browns, Joe, need a QB as well.
Yeah, I mean, for the Giants, do you roll the dice and say, we'll take Travis Hunter and we'll get a quarterback in terms of free agency, maybe a Sam Darnold? I'm just saying, like, or do you lure that type of, that might be their best option right now. I mean, they really screwed up in terms of where they are in this NFL draft class.
No doubt about it, Joe. They certainly did. 2 games on the NFL regular season finale weekend that really did not have any significance for the playoff chase or the top of the draft order. The Jags are going to draft 5th overall. They made it competitive against the Colts in Indy yesterday, covering as a 3.5-point dog, but losing in overtime. The news for the Jags, Joe, the firing of Doug Peterson early on this Monday morning after 3 years in Duval County. But the retention, they are keeping Trent Baalke, the much maligned GM for this Jags organization.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it, right, that they kept the GM and fired the coach. Again, I think from a personnel perspective, Balky has done a pretty good job in terms of amassing talent. It's just that I'm just not sure Doug Peterson elevated after year one with Trevor Lawrence, but he's going to get an OC job, no doubt.
Oh, by the way, the Cardinals did beat the Niners 47-24. A good ending of the year for Kyler Murray. He's Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. That does it today for Football Full Circle. Talk to everybody tomorrow, noon Eastern time on SportsGrid Radio.
You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.